income per capita in Gaza is 31% less than it was 20 years ago. So I hear a lot about de-development. I mean, to me, this is the definition of de-development, right? I mean, we've gone backwards. The Gazan people have gone backwards. Unemployment rates are outlandish, and the numbers start, to be so large that it's incomprehensible. More than 50% among the young people. Yes, they've come down since the war, thankfully, but they're still extremely high. The manufacturing sector used to be significant in Gaza, with lots of exports out of Gaza. It's now it's less. The share of the manufacturing sector has been cut. I mean, it's now 1/3 of what it used to be. In most developing countries, that share goes up. Right? That's part of development, as you move from agriculture into manufacturing. Gaza has gone the other way. There was not much of, there was an export sector, it's completely been eliminated. Ever since the Hamas takeover and the resulting blockade, exports has largely stopped. There's been some recent improvements, and the numbers look impressive if you look at where we started out in 2014 and where we are today. So if you look at it that way, there's been a 10-fold increase. But if you look at it what it was before 2006, it's only 10% of what it was now. So even this high level that's 10 times increased, right, is only 10% of what it was back then. So, I mean, again, how can you run an economy that cannot sell its goods? How can you run an economy that, that's what's happening. And it's not a Palestinian issue. At the same time, when Gaza grew 2%, the West Bank grew 250%. So this is not somehow, mismanagement by the PA of the economy. This is actually, a result of the governance issues of Hamas being in control and the blockade originally of Israel and now also of Egypt. So that's the situation. So we've got 1.8 million people, almost 2 million, like Gershon said, in an area of about 160 square kilometers. And when I speak to Israeli audience, I say, who do you want as your neighbors? Do you want 1.8 million people who, I think according to WHO, already 97% of their water supply is undrinkable, is not fit for human consumption? Do you want 1.8 million people who keep having unemployment rates among youth, especially among young men, of more than 50%? Is that the neighbor you want? Is that a safe place to be? We have a lot of water experts. I see Nada here, I know the former minister. For those of you in Israel, you realize why the Ashkelon water treatment plant shut down recently, right? Because of raw sewage that flowed out of Gaza in there. So Israel can build walls. Israel can, control movement of people in and out. But as long as we don't see development, as long as we see that we're going to have 1.8 million desperate people on your doorstep. That's not a good situation. I'm not a security expert. I'm an economist. So you have to forgive me if I don't understand it properly. But just as a human being, I would rather have 1.8 million neighbors who are people who buy my products, who are cheap labor, very skilled, but cheap labor into my industry, my agriculture. I would rather have 1.8 million there seeing a vibrant neighborhood. Exactly. That's the vision of the two-state solution. It's also two vibrant economies next to each other. But that's not what we have today. We have 1.8 million people who see their livelihoods being worse and worse, who are losing hope, losing faith, without water, without sewage treatment plants. So now the question is then, why, I'm the World Bank and, we have the Quartet here who does a lot of coordination. Why aren't you guys doing something about it? And we try, right? I think all of us try. We in the World Bank still believe in the two-state solution. We still are here to help Palestinian people create a state. So in Gaza, we still work with Palestinian Authority institutions, and they are very effective PA institutions. Former minister knows about the coastal water utility. They lost 3 people during the war. They were out repairing the pipes while the bombs were falling. And they have actually managed to repair an enormous amount of system because they could do it without imports. So the money we have allocated to them is completely spent, and the water supply system is getting back to where it was in 2014. So we approved an emergency project in 2004. Emergency project. It's still not complete. Northern Gaza Emergency Sewage Treatment Plant. Just wait till those walls collapse. It won't be one day that Ashkelon shuts down. It will be a permanent shutdown because there will be so much raw sewage in the water. So this is, obviously it's very close to the wall, so it's been pre-approved by Israel. It's 97% complete. There are some things missing. Electric power that has been, we've talked about for years. Just to give you one example, it's cost us $1.7 million in delays. You have to pay contractors if they didn't get materials on time. It takes on average 18 months from when a request is made for a material to come in, for it to actually come in. And this is for a project where, as I said, that raw sewage, I don't know the distance to Ashkelon. 15 kilometers? 12 kilometers, right? And apparently the current goes north. So if there ever was a project that should be in Israel's interest, this is it. And we can't finish it. That does not speak very hopefully about some of the grand plans that we're all working on, whether it's the big desalination. We need to do something. When 97% of the water is not drinkable, you need to do something. So I think this is really the kind of crisis. And I'm very glad to hear from the security establishment in Israel, and I'm sure we'll hear from our colleagues in INSS, having good neighbors is better for security than having, desperate neighbors. But the water situation is one of the most serious ones. And without some major investments, but it's hard to go to my shareholders, of which Israel is one, and tell them, I'm going to put another 50 million, 100 million into Gaza, when I know it'll be sitting there because we can't get the materials in, or because the contractor is too afraid to go there. One of the German contractors that worked on the site was shot at from the wall. So, I don't know who's on the wall, but I don't think it's Hamas. Fortunately, it just went through his jacket, but obviously he wasn't very keen to show up at work the next day, right? That's the kind of conditions that is happening in Gaza on a project that is in Israel's major interest. We've asked for permit for things like hydrogen peroxide. That'll stop the smell from being so bad. It's been sitting with the Israeli authorities for 2.5 years. I assume that if we get the power so we can start operating, the smell will get so bad that we will get the permit for the hydrogen peroxide. So that's the dilemma we're facing. Now, you can turn this on its head and say, in such a desperate situation, there's actually huge potential, right? That's the other side of the coin. When you've got lots of unemployment, that's resources that could be employed effectively. We did a study and actually shows that labor productivity is fairly high still in Gaza. Those that do work are fairly high. We fund projects with universities that work with the private sector, and incredible creativity is happening. How you do things, online, so you don't have to deal with the export and import restrictions, etc. There's a lot of things that can happen. By the way, Gaza is now, hopefully the West Bank will get 3G now, sometime this year. Gaza will then be one of 2 markets with over 1 million customers who has no 3G. The other one is Sudan. And theirs for political reasons. But anyway, there is potential there. You've got good labor productivity. We actually got a financial sector that works, even in Gaza. Amazingly, the banks in Palestine didn't have an increase in the non-performing loans even after the war, even though so much was destroyed and people still paid. People were coming out to pay their loans back, during the ceasefires. So you've got a good financial sector, you've got a strong neighbor with a vibrant economy, you've got access to the sea, you've got high labor productivity. Should be ideal, right? It should be great. This should be the ideal developing country if you could ever design it, right? Instead, what we have is 2% growth in 20 years, 31% drop in per capita incomes, and level of things leaving Gaza is 10. Let me give my final example, and then I'll shut up. How many times do you think a bottle of Coke between the West Bank has to be loaded and unloaded between the West Bank and Gaza? I mean, normal place it would be 2, right? You put it on the truck, you take it off the truck, right? That would be normal. 7. Now again, I know I tell my kids not to drink Coke because they're bad for their teeth and they shouldn't drink it. But how can Coke be such a security risk that it needs to be unloaded and loaded 7 times? Again, I'm an economist. If I saw this in any other place, I would call it a trade barrier. Because this was a big brouhaha between Mexico and the US, whether you use Mexican trucks or US trucks. So anywhere else in the world, this would be called a trade barrier. Here, it's referred to as security. But I don't want to leave you negative. There is hope. And it takes, I think, like you said, Gershon, we have the solution. On water, this is the one part of the Middle East, if you take sort of Jordan, Israel, and the Palestinian territories, that has enough water. There is enough water right now. For an economist, that's great, right? So all we need is fixes the prices, because that's how we do this stuff. So these are all solvable problems. Gazans have shown tremendous resilience. We owe it to them to give them the chance to pull back out. That's my message to you all. And to the Israelis, what would you rather have? 1.8 million desperate people or 1.8 million consumers and workers? Thank you.